Hi, everyone. It is Friday and it is time for Beyond the Steps. I am Melissa McDaniel Grisham from Turning Point Dance Creations, and I am here with the amazing Bree Zabrowski from Apollo Performance. And we are joined by Lauren Newby, our guest today for the show, where we are going to be talking about should dance educators be teaching strength and conditioning classes?
Uh-oh.
Don't throw anything at the
Uh-oh.
screen.
Uh-oh.
Give us a chance. Give us a chance to have the discussion. I know that we are supposed to be able to do everything in the whole wide world under the sun. There's nothing we can't do. We can build a car, make a dress, choreograph a dance, do everything. But just because we can doesn't mean we should. If you are new to the show, we do controversial stuff like this all the time. We talk about the hard issues that relate to racism, equity, sex abuse prevention, nutrition, psychology, mindset, and dance, medicine, and science. And today will be no different. We are extremely honored to have Lauren here who can lead this discussion and give us some great information that we can all take in, take a deep breath, and get a better understanding of why we might not we need to be the people who are actually teaching these classes. So,
And by the way, if you are new to the show, and this is not just applied to dance, this is applied to performance athletes across the board. So even if you're not a dancer, the information, the evidence, the resources, all of the things that we talk about apply to you as well. So please make sure to stay tuned.
yes, make sure that you stay tuned. Call somebody, text somebody, something to somebody and tell them tune in and watch. If you have a comment, please throw it in the comment section. We want to hear what you have to say. So I want to get started because I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting show. So Bree, why don't you tell people about Lauren?
We are excited to welcome Lauren Newby. She's a dance teacher, choreographer, and physical therapist assistant in New Jersey. She graduated from Union County College with her applied associate's degree as a physical therapy assistant and works at Select Medical Sports Center of Excellence, powered by Kessler Rehab Center in Union, New Jersey. As the dance specialist for Kessler, she focuses on educational programs regarding injury prevention and rehabilitation for local studios and dance programs. Lauren is a member of TDS Plus and the lead of their executive education board. She is a certified point shoe fitter through the Point Shop. Lauren is also a member of the National Dance Education Organization, NDEO. Shout out to them. Associated Dance Teachers of New Jersey, Dance New Jersey, and the American Physical Therapy Association, the Performance Arts Medicine Association, PAMA, and the International Association of Dance Medicine and Science, IADAMS. That is a mouthful, girl. You are busy. Lauren is passionate about dance education and injury prevention and hopes to pass her love for all things movement related to her students. Lauren, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. I'm really excited about having this discussion today.
It's going to be a good one. It's good to have you back with us. Tell us what you've been up to. I know we're all kinds of excited about 2024 and what it has in store for us. What do you have going on?
I've really just been kind of staying the course this last year. I've been continuing as a teacher, as a choreographer, as a physical therapist assistant. I got the really exciting opportunity to go to IADAMS this year when it was in Columbus, Ohio. Wonderful. So that was a fabulous experience, really getting to connect with other dance medicine, science, and teachers and, people working in the industry. And so, just kind of keep going with that big alphabet soup that I got, just going forward.
Alphabet soup is the best. And I will say, like, getting back to traveling and getting to go to these shows, as hard as it is for us to be away from our families and our kids, it is so different to be able to connect in person and have those conversations face to face and put a face with a name. So I'm really enjoying it. We're getting to travel a lot more with Apollo, just to different sectors. The AAWP and the APMA and all of those things. And it's just really fun to make those connections in person. So I feel you on that.
Yes, on the road
again. Right. But let's get started. Let's dive in because this is
yes. So I want to get in the topic. I'm gonna like I did in the intro, head on. I know some of you are like, what? What do you mean I should not or cannot do something?
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to do everything. Everything is always dumped on us as coaches and dance educators. And I think a lot of the parents and assume that when we work with youth that, well, you should be able to know that, right? Well, we don't know everything. So I think it's also important to level set. Why are we even talking about this? Because strength and conditioning at some level is required for high level athletes, right? Do
Well,
you?
we've heard that over and over on this
Right,
show. The
right.
experts that we consistently say less technique, more strength and conditioning.
Hmm.
It's been a constant pattern over the
Hmm.
last 4 years.
So
Oh,
why do you think that has happened over the last 4 years that has grown so much?
well, I think the first thing is that, you know, overall, we know that the level of technique and intensity required for our dancers, especially young dancers, has absolutely outpaced traditional class and training structures.
Mhm.
And it's just gotten to the point where enough people are talking about it that we're finally recognizing this, not just in a professional setting, but it's kind of trickling down into the studios and the pre professional settings as well. Um, I think that it's important to acknowledge that not every single dancer is going to need a strength and conditioning program. When we talk about this, we're talking about mostly our high level dancers, our pre professional dancers, and our competitive dancers. Susie down in the street who takes one tap class a week is not necessarily going to need a strength and conditioning program.
Mhm.
But for our dancers who are more serious, who are taking multiple classes a week, who are engaging in any kind of lifting activities in their dancing, or who are incorporating acrobatic training in their dancing, this is something that we definitely want to incorporate them for sure. And
Mhm.
think about, you say the last 4 years, but think about how old our ballet class structure is and where that technique and training came from. And then think about just the differences in demands on dancers in ballet from the last 20 to 30 years, right? So
Mhm.
we have a very old traditional structure to a ballet class. And the amount of technique and things that are required from our ballet dancers in performance, even in rehearsals, outpaces that by far. So
Mhm.
that's the easiest example to talk about because everybody has a very clear idea of what a ballet class looks like. When you take a hip hop class, every teacher does it a little bit different. When you take a jazz class, every teacher does it a little bit different. But our ballet classes are the easiest ones to look at because it has a very clear pattern. You follow a very established pattern. And then when you go on stage, you're kicking your face how many times, you're on point for how long. And it's really gotten to the point where we've outpaced these things that in
Mhm.
order to complement the dancer, strength training really helps provide longevity and prevent acute and overuse injuries.
Mhm.
And it's funny because this concept is not foreign in pretty much any other
Every other sport.
athletic. I mean, normally I would say this information applies to performance artists and athletes across the board, but really a lot of this is so unique to dance because dance just doesn't, it has that more traditionalist structure. And it hasn't evolved to incorporate those other things where gymnasts get cross training, martial artists get cross training like that. There's definitely like something in place for
Yeah.
this.
For so
Mhm.
long, I think dancers have clung to this idea of being an artist and have
Mhm.
also kind of pushed away the idea of being sports like because we want to have that ethereal feel. We want to have that artistic feel. We want to make what's on stage feel like magic. So the training
Mhm.
process, we try to keep a little bit more quiet. We've kind of kept to
That's an
ourselves.
interesting perspective. That's interesting
Mhm.
perspective. I've never heard that before, but it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see a football player run to the sidelines, put his hands on his knees and gasp, but when a ballet dancer does that, you're like, "Oh, that's a problem," right? You're like,
Mhm.
That's
"It should
true.
look easy and it should look simple." But within the last 15 to 20 years, dance science and the training of dancers and looking into how we train our dancers has become more important and more popular. So the
Mhm.
research is starting to be out there.
Mhm. So, but haven't dancers always conditioned? I mean, when I was growing up, back in the olden days, horse and buggy, that type of thing. I didn't have strength and conditioning classes, but I
Mhm.
felt like it was incorporated into the warm ups and the exercises, like there was an element to it. Has dance training changed? And now we've kind of like pulled that out into a total parallel level of training, or is that different altogether? I guess is the question.
Yeah, so I think it's important that we define what strength and conditioning training we're talking
Yes.
about because
Okay.
you're correct. absolutely. Things like crunches, push-ups, planks, clamshells, balance training, agility training, they have all been a part of a dancer's program for years and years and years, and part of that wonderful tradition. But when you think about them, they're in across the floor processes, or they're in the warm-up process, right? So they're not really designed to build strength, right? Strength training is going to take 2 to 3 times a week with some kind of resistance. They're not really designed to change the dancer's body. Those exercises that we're doing in class are something that's used to complement what we're trying to do in the center, right? What we're trying to do in our performance. So is it warming up a muscle group, right? Like, are your crunches warming you up? Is it, working on a balance piece across the floor that's designed to help your pirouettes? The things that we do inside of a technical class are something that's designed to complement the dance training. When we talk about strength and conditioning programs, we're really talking about programs that are designed to overall change the strength, conditioning, power, and agility of the dancer.
Well, and really like how, like a lot of, I know my warm-ups were like a lot of static stretches, which now they will tell you don't do those things. That's not going to properly warm you up. But then also, like, I can confidently say that 20 years ago, I was not doing near what is being done today in the competitive world, right? Like it just, like you said, it's outpacing the class at this point. And so I think they're two very different, scenarios too. Can you talk a little bit, Lauren, about the skill set and training required to be a conditioning and strength training professional? Are there certifications, or what are the certifications that training that professionals need to have to make sure that they're not harming people and that these movements are being taught properly?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of different professionals who are licensed or certified in this area. And being licensed or certified is very important because it requires education to maintain these licenses and certifications. And like you said earlier, exercise science, when it comes to athletes, when it comes to building strength, when it comes to building power and agility, these are things that have sound evidence, science, and practices behind them. And so maintaining these licenses and these certifications helps these people to be up on their very most evidence-based practices. It's also important to find somebody that fits your needs and fits what you're trying to do. So the first one I'm going to talk about, because that's who I am, is PTs and PTAs, so physical therapists and physical therapist assistants. We are licensed and degreed professionals. We went to school for this, and we have to maintain a license with continuing education credits. And even though most people think of us working once an injury happens,
Right.
a lot of our job is to identify weaknesses, identify imbalances, and then help correct those so that we can help potentially prevent injuries. What we also do is we can also look for, say if a dancer has a really great releve on demi point, but they can't quite get over on point, so they need to build strength. We can build targeted strength. We can help somebody prepare for something that they need to do. So our job is not just recovery, but also prevention. So that's PTs and
So
PTs.
within the framework, though, of PTs, like, don't you need to find somebody who is able to speak your language as whatever performance artist and athlete you are, right? Like, you need somebody well versed in marching arts or dance or gymnastics, like, because they need to understand your needs, right? And what you're going to be doing with your body. So within that umbrella, like, you really have to dig down a little bit deeper to find that specialist, right?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend looking for a specialist in anything that we're going to talk about. Somebody who is either interested in dance or who has a background in it. However, I think it's also important that if you find somebody that you can work with well, having that outside view is also really important. I work with 4 PTs who have no experience in dance whatsoever. And sometimes their experiences of looking at things from a different perspective help me think about it in ways that I've never thought about it before. Help me look at the rehab of an injury or the rehab of emotion, or trying to build strength in a different way. So again, all these people are licensed and degreed, so they understand the muscles and the movements. So if you can explain to them the dance specific piece of it, sometimes it's good to have that outside perspective. But I do generally recommend looking for a specialist.
Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. So the next licensed and degreed practitioner that I would suggest seeking out would be an athletic trainer, a certified athletic trainer. They're going to have very similar areas of expertise to PTs and PTAs. It's just a different certification.
Is that the CSCS credentials, the Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach, or is that different?
So that's different. That's
Okay.
different. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay,
I have a list.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but ATCs, PTs, and PTAs all can be certified strength and CSCSs, certified strength and conditioning specialists.
Okay.
So can personal trainers. So a personal trainer is someone that has a certification through a governing body. Like I have an alphabet soup. This is quite an alphabet soup. So I'm going to give you just a couple of the different governing bodies. That's the NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, NCSA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, NCSF, National Council on Strength and Fitness, and the ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine. So these people, and there are many more than that, but anyone who is certified as a personal trainer goes through a training program. They have to take a test, and again, they have to maintain that certification. So they are continuing to update their information as they go through their professional careers. So again, all of those people, all those professionals can go through to earn other certifications. The CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, is one of the ones you'll see most often, but there are other certifications, things like female athlete certifications, things that have to do with pelvic floor. There are other certifications that you can earn from different governing bodies.
Interesting. So when at the very base, you're saying those three sort of umbrellas are what we want. And then, going one step further, the more, I guess, letters you see, the more credentials and the more certifications you see, the more they're going to be able to dive in with you.
Absolutely. Those are the three that personal trainers, ATCs, and PTs and PTAs are the three that would be my go-tos. But you also have things like people who are certified in Pilates, certified in yoga, and gyrotonics, and Feldenkrais. There are other conditioning programs that I wouldn't necessarily call a strength and conditioning program, but that are already incorporated into a lot of the dance arts. You see a lot of Pilates, a lot of yoga already. Things like progressing ballet technique. Those are certifications that you can look for also that show that somebody is continuing their education, is maintaining an evidence-based section of knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those just joining, this is Beyond the Steps. This is a show where we talk about all things that are affecting performance athletes, from racism, gender inequity, sex abuse prevention, nutrition, psychology, dance medicine and science, and more. I'm here with my fabulous friend and co-host, Melissa McDaniel Grisham, and we're excited to welcome back Lauren Newby to talk about, should dance educators supplement by teaching strength and conditioning classes? And this is a really hot button topic because traditionally dance teachers, dance educators, directors do it all, right? We wear many, many hats, and there's a lot of weight on our shoulders, a lot of responsibility we carry for our students. And the question is this something we should be really adding to our responsibility list, or should we trust people who are certified to do it? And we're having a really great conversation. I encourage you to go back to the beginning, listen to the first segment, because it really is enlightening, but also be sure to share it. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast, and make sure you're sharing these conversations so that we can get the word out into our community. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Awesome. So the idea of a formalized training program has become integrated into the dance curriculum. Dance educators have just kind of assumed the role, like, oh, we're supposed to be trained. Okay, cool. Then I'm going to do it. But in your opinion, what are the dangers of us just assuming that role without the formal training in that area?
Yeah. So I think what we're seeing is an overcorrection, right? We know this is needed. And just like you said, we are so used to being everything for our students. We're so used to being everything for our dancers. And we're relying on our experience with movement. We're like, yeah, okay, we did planks, we did crunches, in my warm up 20 years ago. I can do this. Let me watch some YouTube videos. Let me use social media as a resource, because there is so much information out there. But think about it for a second. Would you hire a tap teacher to teach your ballet classes and say, just go watch some YouTube videos?
No.
Would you try, right?
Oh. No.
Would you trust that they're going to be able to teach you the correct technique, that they're going to be able to make good corrections, that they're going to understand the history behind it, that they're going to understand the science behind it? And in a very basic sense, that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're using social media to build programs, and we're using our history to build programs without really understanding the science behind it. And, it's really important to say, yes, social media is a wonderful resource. And I think that professional dancers sharing their workout routines has gone a long way into showing and normalizing the idea that dancers do need to strength train, that they do need to work out outside of the dance studio, and that it won't make you bulky, won't make you, uncastable, all these kind of things that we were worried about before. But we can't take a professional ballerina's workout on a BOSU and give that to our teens, right? We can't take a social media exercise where somebody's squatting with another person on their back and give that to our preteens. Just because it looks flashy and it looks fun doesn't mean it's necessary or appropriate. And I'm going to use that one example because I was actually provided that by a mother that I was speaking to. She said her studio was doing a class and they had her child put somebody else on their back, another child on their back, and do squats. Well, that's cute and it's funny and haha, you can get some social media out of it. But what if I loaded a barbell with 100 pounds and asked your child to do squats?
Right. You wouldn't. Yeah.
At its base, it's the same thing. So was that child assessed for that squat performance? Can they actually do it? Do they have the right form? Did they do it loaded with a less heavy weight before that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to look at our dancers and say, you do superhuman things in class all the time. You should be able to do them a superhuman exercise. But our dancers are amazing at compensating, right? They miss the basics sometimes. They use the wrong muscles to hold their leg up. They use different muscles than they should be to do exercises all the time. And so dancers miss basics. And by jumping to these fun, high-level exercises that we see on social media, it's actually a disadvantage, and it can be putting them in danger of injury.
So this is a great segue, and I can already hear the sighs and groans from dance educators everywhere saying, I have to pay for one more staff member. I have to add one more class to my schedule. How I can't possibly do this. What would you say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed at the idea of segmenting the strength and conditioning element to the training and leaving it to professionals in the field?
So, when I was talking about this, I was like, oh, I'm going to get kicked out of the dance. But I think this is, like you said, this is such an important topic. So I want to be frank and I want to be open and honest. So the first thing I'm going to say is think of the health and safety of your students. We know that that's a priority, and that inevitably ties to your reputation as a teacher and a studio owner, right? The truth is, dance studios do not need to provide strength and conditioning training, right? That is not really part of what falls under our umbrella. For many years, it's been traditional to provide some sort of exercise class or some sort of stretching or flexibility things. Zumba classes come to mind because dance can be a great way to help maintain and support fitness. But true dance technical training has nothing to do with strength and conditioning training, right? So the majority of educators really need to think about two things, in my opinion. The first is my choreography and my class appropriate for where most of my students are at, right? Because every child and every dancer is going to be at a slightly different level, but is it appropriate for the majority of them? And if it's not, what am I going to do about it, right? And so the answer to that may be, if you're a pre-professional or a highly competitive studio, that you do need some sort of strength and conditioning component. But for most studios, being able to provide information on things like overall fitness and being open about the idea that dancers may need a fitness routine outside of dance, and that if there are concerns, they should be discussed with a medical professional, especially if it's a child, they need to discuss it with their doctor, can be enough for most studios and most educators, right? Being aware and being honest enough to say, I am not the expert in this area, I am going to defer to another expert, is really important.
But I want to dive deeper in this because we like to provide solutions too. We don't like to just like call out the problem and like just say, well, okay, this is an issue, deal with it. But like there are so many things that we can do to get around, you know, adding another staff member. And it all comes back to building the relationships in the community that you're in, finding those people who want to build their business and work with these performance athletes. Oftentimes they're going to be willing to come in and, you know, do a class to get everybody engaged. And then maybe it's something you make, you know, the parents have to do on their own, you know, X amount of times a week at this
Mhm.
facility with this person. But ultimately, you want to make sure too that the training is consistent, that they're all
Mhm.
getting this in some way, shape, or form. So making it a requirement off site, bringing those professionals in, you know, if you can offer them two or three different age levels and they're coming in and working a total of 3 hours, it becomes worth it for them to do that. And maybe there's a small fee that everybody pays to take this class on top of their regular, you know, dance classes or rehearsal fees or whatever,
Mhm.
but they're getting that training, they're doing it on site, or arrange for it to go off site, but make it part of your program and give a special deal or something when they
Mhm.
work with that provider. But I think there's a lot you can do to get creative. Um, with it. And nobody's saying, like, obviously, yes, the yoga and Pilates elements incorporated into dance classes, that's different. But when we're talking about strength and conditioning, what I'm hearing you saying is the consistency is key, right? To building the muscles to sustain
Yeah.
this movement. And so
Mhm.
it's consistency, meaning it's needed more than once a month or more than
Mhm.
once a week, even if they're dancing for a certain amount of hours.
Absolutely. So, you know, let's be realistic. You know, absolutely every dance teacher is going to incorporate basic
Sure.
body exercises, some TheraBand exercises, balance exercises, and that is well within our scope of practice, our area of expertise to do. But for those dancers who need to do something like strength train, when we talk about strength training, we're not talking about doing a couple of TheraBand exercises. We're talking about lifting weights. We're talking about doing complex movements that make sure you need to have really good form for. We're talking about training 2 to 3 times a week to really change that person's body. So it's a little bit different from the thing that we're used to doing. And I think sometimes we have to say that we're not the expert, but there are plenty of experts that want to be involved with you, that want to be involved with your studio, that want to help your students. And it can be a really great symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Part of what I do at Kessler is I go to studios and I talk about preventing injury. I talk about risk management for injury, and I build a relationship with teachers so that if they have a concern, they send their students to me.
Mhm.
And that's sometimes the best place that you can be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes it off of your plate as a teacher, but it gives you a place that you can refer for injuries. You can for strength training. You can refer to when you have questions. Sometimes these people will be interested in helping you build a program that you can provide in your
Yeah.
studio, right?
Yeah.
It becomes an outsourced thing where you get to build a relationship with somebody in your community, that you get to build trust with parents, right? Because you're saying, I'm not the expert in this. I'm going to bring you the expert in this. And it just makes it one less thing that you have to worry about while also providing things for your students still.
Mhm.
And just because I want to complete this tangent that I'm going on, what are the amount of hours generally? I know it's a case by case, and it really depends on the individual and where they're at and all of the things. But is there like that benchmarker of like at this many hours a week, you really should be having 2 to 3 days of strength and conditioning?
That's a really good question. Um, I think it's going to, I don't know that there's any actual research on that. And so
Yeah.
I'm not going to say specifically. But if you're asking my opinion would be it's going to be less about the number of hours that somebody's dancing and more about what level they're at, because I work with many recreational dancers who dance 5 or 6 hours a week, but one class is ballet, one class is tap, one
Sure.
class is jazz. They're not looking to perform in college or follow it up with a professional career. And so even though they're hitting that benchmark of hours per week, it doesn't necessarily mean that they also need to spend 3 hours in a gym strength training with a personal trainer. What I think you want to look at is what is the level of dedication and what is the level of performance required. Someone who is looking at more advanced levels, no matter their age, someone who's doing any kind of weight sharing or lifting, girls or boys, right? If you're lifting somebody else's body weight, you need to be able to lift that body weight. You need to be able to lift that in a regular weight, in a sandbag, just for safety. You need to know how to lift that properly, especially when you lift a person. People are wiggly, they move, right? You need to be prepared for that. So my recommendation would really be, like you said, it's a case by case basis. So it's hard to say this is where you need to start strength training. But for the more serious dancer, probably in their teens is going to be a time where you're going to want to look at them and say, maybe we need to talk to a personal trainer. Maybe we need to talk to an ATC. What can we do to complement your dance training, right? We don't want to hit on the same things over and over. We don't want to be doing the same exercises and dance classes we're doing in our training sessions, because that's going to put you at a risk for overuse injuries. Right. We want to build a program that's going to complement what you're doing with your dance. So if you're doing, all of your balances on the right side in your dance class and in your performances, we're going to work on the left side so that you're even and ready to go. And right, so those pieces are really important to making that decision.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. If you are just now joining us, we are talking to Lauren Newby about, should dance educators be supplementing their teaching with strength and conditioning classes? As in, should they actually be the facilitators of these activities? If you are just joining us, you can catch this episode from the beginning, and you absolutely should, on YouTube at Apollo Performance or at TP Dance Creations. You can also invite your friends. There's still show left. We still have a bunch of questions for Lauren, so please invite them to come watch, share this episode, comment. We want to know what you think as well. So I say all the time, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should be doing something. I say that to my son and to myself all the time. Just because, again, doesn't mean that you should. So do you think, I'm gonna kind of, I was going in a different direction with this question, but I'm gonna kind of massage it in another way now. There's a benefit, I think, Lauren, and you can tell me whether you agree, with taking this off of your plate, because it allows you to look at other things like your creativity, your artistry, those type of mental wellness things that you can be doing with your students when you take this off of your plate. Do you agree with that? Do you think that there's an actual benefit to, say, other than the fact that we will be passing it on to professionals who can actually do it in a way that's effective? Another benefit, added benefit.
Absolutely, right? You no longer need to worry about this part, right? This part of it. You pass that on to a professional who knows what they're doing. You can have the conversations with them about the pieces that you're concerned about, what you're seeing in the technical class or on the technical side of it. And then you get to worry about dance, right? Somebody said earlier, we're everything to everyone. We're everything to our students. We make the costumes, we do the sets, we do the lighting. Like, we have enough to worry about as dance teachers, right? We have to worry about tuition and parents and outside events and competitions. There is always so much to worry about, and trying to teach yourself a new skill and then worrying about if that skill is good enough, worrying about if it's working, worrying about if it's providing added value. That's a lot of stress on your studio, on your person, on your kind of everyday existence that you just don't need to have, right? We are experts in dance. We are experts in creating choreography. We are experts in teaching our students how to turn a step into artwork, right? So let's focus on that, right? Let's take a moment. Let's take 2024 and step back and say, I am going to be just an artist, and that's okay, right? It is okay to just be an artist. It is okay to say, I am a dance teacher. You don't have to say, I'm a dance teacher, but I also do this and I also do that. And then I have a piece of this. And, for so long, that's been part of our survival.
Right.
And I absolutely will acknowledge that I'm a person that does that too. But step back, take a step back and say, I am just going to focus on my teaching. I am going to do the thing that I do best, the thing that I know the best, and go with it. Right.
Well, and so, I mean, just being honest, like, there's also that element. I think a lot of us as educators are very type A, like control. I like to have control over what is going on and know what's going on, because you take your students and they are your babies. They're feel very protective, and sometimes turning them over to somebody else is just, the idea of that is like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not doing that. That's
Right.
scary. So
Well,
also not farming that out, but like getting somebody else and sending them to the same person where you have that direct connection with that trainer, right? And you can find a way and come up with a way to send all your students to work with that one person. That might be ideal too, because you can still communicate your concerns. You can communicate the movements that they're going to be doing, and they can help you work on that, sort of like your assistant, coach. But you now have this partner that can help you achieve your goals and knows how to get there, right?
well,
And so,
yeah. So as a dance teacher, I firmly believe that when I'm teaching my students, if a parent came up to me and asked me a question, I should be able to justify every step that I'm teaching them, why I'm teaching them that specific step, all the preparation we did to learn that step or that combination, what muscles they're using, why they're doing it. Like, I should be able to explain every single thing about what I'm teaching a student at any moment if a parent approaches me. And if I can't do the same for an exercise that I'm teaching in my class, I feel that it's not appropriate. Like, that's, for me, that's the bar that I would use.
yeah.
And so if I can't justify that, I need to really stop and think about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes so much back into what you say. Like, I call my students my baby ducks. Like, I'm their mama and they're my babies, and I want to protect them and teach them and give them everything I can. But I can only give them what I have, right? If I don't have information, if I'm grasping at straws for something, I'm not doing them a service by trying to pretend I know what I'm doing.
Right. So that's a great segue into our last question, before we get to homework. If you have a dance educator who wants to incorporate strength and conditioning programs, and they want to teach it and they're committed to that idea and they want to do so safely, what certification or training program would you recommend? Without full certification, what program would you recommend for dance educators specifically?
So there's a couple different avenues that you can go through. The first recommendation that I'm going to make is being really active in groups like IADMS or PAMA or NDEO. Those, they have yearly conferences, and they are full of dance science educators, people who are studying the body, studying movement, studying all of the things that we've talked about today. And many of their conventions and courses do revolve around a lot of these ideas about advancing what we're teaching in the classroom, how we teach it, and what's the best way to teach it, and what age is the best time to teach it. So that's the first place I would start with resources. Look at those different groups that many of you are probably already a member of, like NDEO, and see what resources they have for you there. Strength training and conditioning, if you're looking at a full program, is going to be really overwhelming. But if you're looking for just a few supplementary things that you want to teach in class, or a couple of exercises that you're like, oh, all my students are always missing this one piece, what am I missing? Those are the first great steps.
Yeah.
For a lot of teachers, there are a ton of really accessible certifications. Now, I'm not affiliated with any of them, but things like Pilates, PBT, yoga, those are already things that a lot of the times are already basically in a lot of the things that we teach, because they're either similar or have been integrated by our teachers before us. We were taught in a certain way, and then we teach a certain way. And many of those certifications, I mean, I wouldn't say they're easy to get, but they're going to be much easier than a personal trainer certification.
Right.
But if people are interested, the personal trainer certifications are out there as well, and they are going to be more difficult and more comprehensive, but they are also going to teach you how to program, how to build a full strength and conditioning program, how to really take somebody and reach their goals through a slow, methodical training process.
Yeah. And I think it depends what your goals are with I mean, if you're somebody who wants to, round out your resume and, make this a long-term part of your career, obviously going for that full certification is a great idea. But if, like you said, it is more simply to just provide your students with an extra layer of support, I think that's the question we need to be asking ourselves. It's a great point. So today we are chatting with Lauren Newby about, should dance educators supplement by teaching strength and conditioning classes? A lot of great information in this episode. So go back and watch from the beginning. If you want to see this episode and all of our episodes, season 1 through season 4, you can find us on YouTube at Apollo Performance and at TP Dance Creations. Fantastic resources in each of these episodes. So I do hope you watch and share, like, subscribe, all the things. And thanks for tuning in today. If you've stuck with us this far, it is homework time. We love homework on this show. So Melissa,
we do love homework, and Lauren has been with us before, so she knows the homework flow. We like to give our viewers one action item that they can take between now and next Friday when we air again to make progress in this area. So everybody listen close. Lauren, what is your homework for our viewers?
Oh my gosh. Your homework is not fun homework. I'm sorry. This is what's going to get me kicked out of the dance educator realm. Your homework is to sit down and really say, what am I doing right now? Right? I want you to step back and take a really clear assessment of how you're providing strength and conditioning exercises for your dancers. Where are you getting them from? Do you know why you're doing them and what the proper form is? Can you make them easier? Can you make them harder? Is it age appropriate? Stop and think to yourself, if this was my child and it was somebody else teaching them, would I be okay with what I'm doing for other people's children? We try so hard to be everything for everyone that we always have good intentions, but sometimes we don't step back and really examine it from a very brutal and honest position. So my homework for you is to take that moment, really be honest with yourself, and say, is what I'm doing the best thing I can do for my dancers?
And what a great time to do it, because we're halfway through the season. We're already starting to think about summer and the requirements for next year and planning for 24-25. What a great time to sort of step back and assess and reevaluate. And if you can't put these changes in now, there are small things you can do, but also it gives you time to implement it for next season. So this is a great time to have this conversation with yourself, I think.
Absolutely. And we talked earlier about reaching out to people in your community. Now is the time to build those relationships. Now is the time to get a visit on the books, call some people, find out when your Chamber of Commerce is meeting. There's a lot of things that you can do now, like you said, to really plan for next season or for your summer program, to make some changes and to do things that are new and different for you. Maybe studios don't have a strength and conditioning program and would like to build one with a connection, or maybe they do have a program and they're looking to hand it off and give it to somebody else. Right now is the time to really think about that. So that homework where you sit and you think sometimes is the worst kind of homework, but that's your assignment.
Well, thank you for that, everybody. You have your assignment. Please go forward and think about that. We also have homework for you. It's the same homework that we give every single week, to take the STEPS initiative. It is the foundation of Beyond the Steps, and where this show actually was born from, and it is totally free. There are a number of modules in there taught by professionals on racism, equity, inclusion, psychology, nutrition, mindset, sex abuse and prevention, and of course, dance, medicine, and science. So please, the link is there at the bottom of your screen. Go take that. Like I said, it is free. Invite someone to take it with you and just learn a little bit. The more you know, the better you are. I promise. We promise. We promise. We promise that. Lauren, do you do consults and things with studios and individuals? Okay, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So I think my Instagram handle is on there. I'm also on TikTok and YouTube. It's all the same kind of thing, at Miss Lauren Newby or at Miss Lauren N. But I work out of Kessler Rehabilitation Center in Union, New Jersey, and I am licensed to practice in New Jersey. I can we can have a discussion if your studio is outside of New Jersey, but inside of New Jersey, I can come, I can talk to you, I can talk to your students, talk to your parents, and we can really have a discussion on what this looks like for your studio and how that can work better for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody reach out to Lauren with any questions. She's always more than happy to answer or guide you in the right direction. That's the thing about all of our friends and experts that we've had on this show are so open to that communication. So take advantage of it. Reach out. You have people, there's an amazing amount of people in the community that love and support and want the best for dance community and that we all know and love. So reach out, utilize them, link elbows, work together. It has been another fantastic conversation. Lauren Newby, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your wisdom. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me and not being afraid to have these tough conversations. They're the ones we need to have the most.
Oh, we love the tough conversations. We welcome them. I love it. We are going to be back next week with an all new episode. Well, actually, no, it's a Flashback Friday episode, Melissa.
Yep.
We're running one of our favorite past episodes with our dear friend Aisha Upchurch as we explore how we teach hip hop from a historical perspective to make sure cultural significance is not lost. Again, another great conversation that isn't touched on enough in this industry. So join us for that Flashback Friday. In the meantime, you can catch this episode and all of our episodes on YouTube at Apollo Performance and TP Dance Creations. We are scheduling for the second half of this season, and we need guests, we need topics. We want to hear from you. Message us on our social media platforms or info@apolloperformance.com to let us know if you want to join us as a guest or if you have a suggestion for a topic. We want to know what you want to hear about and what is challenging you in your community so that we can make a difference. So don't be afraid to message us. We want to hear from you. You have your homework from Lauren. It's not easy homework, but do it. Take that Beyond the Steps course. And until next week, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, everyone.